What are custom ROMs and why should you care about them? Let's talk about it. The other day I saw a comment from one of you guys asking me which custom ROM do you use? And I was about to comment back saying I don't use them anymore. I mean, it has been a long time since I used a custom ROM, but that got me thinking. Like, ever since I got my first Android phone back in 2010 or maybe 2011, I've been experimenting with these different ROMs and tinkering my phone. I've always been interested in that. But I've never spoken about this on this channel, so I thought let me share my experiences and hopefully get you interested as well. You see, Android is a vastly customizable, very powerful operating system. It's part of the reason why I love it so much, and I can't switch to any other operating system like iOS, even though iOS clearly has some advantages. But in case you have no idea what a custom ROM is and what it's all about, then let me take you through the basics. You see, all operating systems, desktop and mobile, are derived from one central operating system called Unix. That's kind of like a granddaddy of all operating systems. And well, you probably know Linux and its many distros like Ubuntu, Manjaro, Kali Linux, all these things. Android is actually built on top of a Linux kernel, so it belongs to the Linux family. I mean, Google has the rights for its UI and the framework that it uses, but the underlying kernel is still based on open source Linux. So essentially, these smartphones that were coming out with Android operating systems, they basically had the Linux kernel with a UI on top. This was called a ROM. And no, it's not the built-in storage of your phone. I don't know why companies say 32 GB ROM. That's wrong. It's 32 GB of storage, out of which a couple of gigabytes is the software that you will be using. Your operating system and the built-in apps constitute a ROM. That's defined by the company who developed your phone. And that's where the problem came in. You see, even though Linux is an open source operating system, the companies didn't want you to dig through their system files and do any changes. So even though you paid full money for your phone, unlike your computer, like for example in Windows, if you're an administrator, you can do granular level changes, like you can change registry, update or remove drivers, you can control the hardware on a very minuscule scale. That's something which is not possible with your Android phone, right? You can't just update your camera drivers. All those files are locked away from you and you cannot access it directly, which is why it's called a read-only memory. You need some special privileges to do that, and that is nothing but rooting. You see, in Linux, every resource is categorized as a folder, so every single driver that you have, every application will be stored as a particular folder or directory as it is called. And all of these folders will be stored in a hierarchy, one inside the other, and the topmost folder, which is like the parent folder of everything, is called a root folder. So by default in your phone, you won't have access to this root folder, and you can kind of gain access to it by means of certain exploitations, which is called root access. If you get root access, you are basically God with your phone. You can do anything with the software. You can change the boot animation and put your own picture so that every time you switch on your phone, you see your picture instead of the company logo. You can do that. It's pretty crazy. Like, I have been doing that for a long time, and it's really fun once you get to know that. And the thing is, you don't have to be an engineer or know any kind of programming languages to do anything like this. All of these repositories and all these program packages will be available to you directly. There are dedicated repository. A repository is basically a collection of files which is hosted in a server which you can download, similar to Play Store, but it's way more fun. If you're a root user, you probably know about exposed repository. Like, it's a bunch of useful files that can uniquely change your phone in a very pretty interesting way. If you want, you can change the individual icons of your status bar. If you don't like your battery icon or the Wi-Fi symbol, you can change it to something else. You can define your own custom menus so that when you long press a button, a custom menu comes up instead of the stock menu of your phone. So a custom ROM is kind of a bundle of the same thing, but it's replacing your stock ROM. A stock ROM is the one that basically when you first unbox your phone and switch it on, the operating system that turns on is the stock operating system. Since Android is extremely versatile, you can easily replace it with some other compatible OS that's okay with this particular hardware. And you have to make sure that your the ROM that you're flashing is compatible with your hardware, because if you flash something else, then you'll end up breaking your phone, or it's called bricking your phone. Usually it will end up in a soft brick, meaning that the phone will never turn on. You will keep seeing the boot animation going on and on. But in rare occasions, it can go into a hard brick mode, meaning that some kind of a hardware component is fried. There's very little chance of that happening, but I managed to do it actually. In my second attempt, I fried my hardware kernel, so the phone just wouldn't turn on. That's pretty rare. It doesn't happen, but I managed to do it, so I'm pretty proud of that. Also, rooting will void your warranty, so companies don't like you to go in there and do something cool with your phone, so they'll immediately void your warranty. That's why I ended up paying full price when I broke my screen, even though I had the warranty for this for another 4 months, because I rooted this phone on day one. I mean, what can I do? I'm a curious soul. Whenever I see a button that says do not press, I have to press it and see what happens. So there are plenty of websites out there that can offer you a custom ROM for your particular phone that can drastically change your look, your functionality, even improve your battery and performance in many ways. Well, it's pretty improved now, but the stock ROMs that were coming a few years ago were pretty heavy on the hardware, so the performance wasn't that great. Installing a custom ROM from the AOSP family, which stands for Android Open Source Project, meaning that it's a stock Android ROM, it's like a Lineage OS or anything like that, that would drastically improve your phone's performance and battery, because custom ROMs are usually lightweight ROMs. They are not as heavy in terms of the amount of ROM that they take. To install this, all you have to do is search for your phone's model and search for a bunch of ROMs. You'll get a few listings with a few screenshots, or download something that you like, and it'll be a zip file. Keep it in your phone and you can install a recovery software on your phone. A recovery software is something that sits on your kernel. It's like a BIOS for your phone. So you can install a particular operating system without booting your phone at all. There are many recoveries, like I used CWM for a very long time. It's Clockwork Mod, a very famous, very widely available recovery, until another recovery came out called TWRP. That's Team Win Recovery Project. That was a touchscreen recovery, and it blew my mind, because usually in recovery screen your touchscreen wouldn't work. You had to navigate using the volume up and down button and press OK with the power button. So having a touchscreen interface to install your operating system or erase your phone or do whatever else was pretty useful. So once you're in this recovery and you have the proper ROM, all you have to do is select that ROM and swipe this slider to install it. It'll usually be in the eMMC folder in case you don't know where to look if you have placed it in the built-in storage. I mean, I really feel that modern day phones are not really well suited for tinkering with them, because the older day phones, they had these hardware reset buttons. Well, first of all, most of the back panels were removable, remember those? And there used to be a hardware reset button on some of these phones, like the one on mine, where you can easily press and immediately shut the power to that phone just like that. It doesn't ask you, do you want to shut down or not, immediately switches off. So even though the battery on this particular phone wasn't removable, I could easily use the hardware reset button to immediately stop the booting process or whatever it was going, just in case I found out that I've messed up somehow and I have to stop this immediately. But if you're going to try to do something like this, be advised, you have to be ready to do a lot of tinkering and a lot of troubleshooting, because it's not as straightforward as you think. Oftentimes things go sideways all the time, and you are stuck with this boot loop mode more than you would like to admit. But it's not a huge crisis or anything like that. You can easily fix it, and you'll find tons of helpful guides. So I mean, if you're tinkering something that the company doesn't allow you to do, then you have to be ready to face some issues that the company doesn't provide solutions for. Except for OnePlus, I think. I mean, back in their early days of OnePlus 3 and stuff like that, they used to officially support you even if you root your phone. So OnePlus was encouraging users to root their phones, and they would even provide you warranty even after you have rooted your phone. So I think they were the only company to provide warranty without voiding it just because you've rooted your device. That was pretty cool of them, really. I mean, now they have turned into a little bit more mainstream flagship, and I don't know if they still offer those services, but I mean, that was pretty cool to see back in the day. Of course, you won't be getting regular software fixes from the company anymore because you're not using company OS. But hey, I mean, you can always change it to something else, right? Downloading and installing custom ROMs is not a huge deal. Obviously, you wouldn't get any official company software to do this because they don't want you to do these things, right? So you had to use some kind of universal applications developed by other passionate people like us. So even though I don't do that anymore, because nowadays I find that the phones nowadays have all the features that I would have required to have with their rooted phone, like built-in screen recording, split screen multitasking. I used to do that with a rooted module, but now it's all built into the operating system. So I don't personally see a reason why I should root my phone anymore. Well, anyway, hopefully you got some idea about what a custom ROM is and what it's involved with. Go ahead, search for your phone and type custom ROM for your particular phone. See if there are anything cool out there. And if your phone is already void of warranty, then take a backup and try to do something fun. You may learn something new. As usual, if you have any further questions, drop them in the comments. Let's have a chat. I'll see you soon. Cheers.